Newsfirst, Newsline with Faraz, Shauketaly.
And very good evening to you and welcome to Newsline Live. And this evening, my next guest is a financial legal specialist with years of experience in the regulatory side of the business. And he's here after we've received several messages asking about the state of the economy. A day doesn't go by without people asking us about the state of the economy, and especially after the budget, people keep asking us how the government is going to increase the revenue. Now, this government have gone down to a macro level. There's even a minister in charge of capital markets and money. So my next guest is a specialist in that area, and I thought that we'd ask him those questions. Mr. Malik Kader, very good evening to you.
Good evening to you, Faraz. Nice to be on the program.
Thank you very much for obliging. And straight to the point here, the government, on the one side, we've got a loan from, not a loan, we got some money, probably a loan, I'm not quite entirely sure. But anyway, China gave us very quickly $500 million. India did a swap arrangement with us. The Americans have offered 480 million, and it's a bit contentious, that one. But in between all this, the government also stated that they will not go towards the IMF, and they are all collectively seated there, burning the midnight oil even, trying to collect money. How important is the capital market in this whole scenario then?
Right. Firstly, Faraz, before I get on to the capital markets, let's look at the debt you were talking about.
Yes.
In Sri Lanka. If I remember right, it was about maybe last year or the year after. On this very program, you had one of the world's mega investment gurus, Sir Mark Mobius. On this program.
Yes.
And I don't know whether it was a very fancy idea he had of talking about debt. And what he said in your program, Faraz, is that our total debt is in and around 60 billion US dollars.
Yes.
Okay. At that time, he was with the view that there was a lot of funding available in Europe, right? And that you could get, if properly sourced, funding at about 1% from Europe, right? So his contention was that we must have a concerted effort, right, and go and borrow the entire 60 billion from Europe, right, and clear our books.
Indeed.
At maybe 1 or 1.5. You need to factor in the country risk and all that kind of stuff. This is what Mark Mobius said. It's not what I'm saying.
But
right?
it was pre-COVID.
Yeah, pre-COVID.
Yeah.
And what he said was a more important thing is that don't borrow 20, 30 years. Borrow 50 years, right? Then your bullet will come, right, in the 50th year, right, the payments, right? So you have cleared your debt. Your debt is at 1.5 or maybe 2 or 3% based on the risk factor of the country, and then you will have enough money available for development and consumption.
Is that a pretty good idea?
It is a brilliant idea if it can be done.
Is it achievable though? Now in this post-COVID?
Post-COVID, yes, that's the thing. Now this was said by none other than...
That was pre-COVID.
Yes, pre-COVID, right? But there can also be opportunities available, right, for funding to come in, cheap funding to come in, for which we need to source that kind of funding properly.
Right.
For us talking about the economy,
Yeah.
one of the things we need to remember is, right,
Yeah.
looking at our debt, right, income versus expenditure, right, we are currently matching it off.
Yeah.
We don't have extra money, right, for consumption and spending.
Well, we have a budget deficit of
That's right.
1.5 trillion.
Rupees. So we have all those things available. So we need to look at avenues of reducing our expenditure and increasing our income.
Right.
That is, I mean, it's not an easy thing. It's easy as said, but you need to have proper controls, proper disciplines available to achieve these targets.
Well, thank you very much for tuning in, and as always, you can send us your questions by SMS 0772 300 305. The card ought to be coming up on your screen. Somebody is asking us, well, we sort of asked the same question before, about the rescheduling of the debt. Now that the economy worldwide is different from the time that when Mr. Mobius was here espousing the possibility of going for a rescheduling your debt, consolidating it all and borrowing at because interest rates are much lower now, and he didn't seem to think that Sri Lanka would have any trouble in achieving that.
Right.
But that was, of course, before the pandemic affected not only us but everywhere in the world, apart from about 7 countries, and they're all South Pacific islands, by the way. So, what role can the capital market play? I'm asking you this because during your time at the SEC, I said in the intro that you introduced some sort of novel concepts, at the time never experienced on the stock exchange. But those moves, those handbrakes, if you like, didn't really mix well, didn't gel with the powers that be. And you quietly went to the, as a senior advisor to the Ministry of Finance, from which you then went off the radar. So, in that context, is it a good idea, the investing of the public's monies, by the EPF monies, into the stock market and giving the stock market a fillip?
Faraz, you cannot restrict market participants coming into the market.
Right.
EPF is, or the government funds will play a major role in the market.
Yeah.
Just because you have burnt your hands once, it doesn't for a while mean that you should ignore the capital markets. If you are doing that, you are doing injustice to the EPF holders.
Right.
The reason is the market is moving up, and that benefit has to go towards the EPF holders.
Right.
Currently, if you are basically putting a full stop, none of them can come into the market.
But what about controls?
No, so you need to have proper controls, right? With proper controls, I think the government funds have to come into the market. If the government funds has come into the market now, I think the market would be in a higher position than it is right now.
The pumping
The
and
only
dumping.
problem, the only problem is EPF funds coming into the market is like a bad word, right? People will not want to hear about it. But remember, you're depriving the fund holders, the EPF.
If you're buying at real value, not if you're spending buying stocks that even 5 years later has fallen down so badly that the unrealized losses are enormous, and to try and get any gains, you're going to hold that for several years to come.
Yeah, that's bad management. So you need to take the bad management.
How can you control that?
No, so you need to take the bad management out, right? Bad fund managers out, right? You give guidelines to the new fund managers who are there. Because for us, looking at the market right now, looking at the Ps, looking at some of the counters, right? On a long-term basis, right? You're looking at basically 50% net asset value. Most of the companies are trading, particularly some of the banks, right? So those are opportunities, long-term opportunities available for government funds to come, and not to prop up the market, right? But give the benefit to that segment of investors.
We got one question here already about what we're talking about. Don't you think the stock market is moving fast upwards, despite the risk ratings downgraded by Moody's and Fitch on Sri Lanka?
The risk rating, which has been basically, the so-called downgrade, has nothing to do with the market moving up for us. right? It is the local investors who are coming into the market. They also need to have a place to go and invest. Currently, interest rates are coming down as much as 4 to 5%.
Yeah.
Right? People need places to go and invest, and currently you could see a lot of money flowing into the market. We hope that they make informed investment decisions based on good analysis they get
No,
from their investment advisors.
the skepticism and the worry both is fueled by information that is now available as to how many stocks the EPF ETF purchased when those shares were trading at several times its par value, much higher, and for no earthly reason. There were companies that were worth zero, and they were worth all of a sudden 2 billion rupees in a matter of days. Yes, they can sort of explain it, but they can't explain it in a manner which will be acceptable to the general public, especially when you're thinking about that it's the public's money. And it is. If you are a listed entity, it's the public money.
Agreed, Faraz, no doubt about it. There were some very bad decisions that were taken.
Yes, but how do we do
Right.
this?
So you need to have controls,
Yeah.
right? The financial analysts, right? The fund managers, they need to have some element of control in their investment parameters.
Did you, during your time at the SEC, and provided you're not breaking any Official Secrets Acts, are you able to tell me, was insider trading apparently rampant?
The thing for us, particularly in a developed market and a market that is new, the awareness on insider trading or insider dealing was very limited. There were a couple of cases that basically were brought up to the SEC and which went up, even some of them went to courts, right? We found people buying right stocks without not much of a knowledge. Having said that, I must say that there were some who were doing it right with knowledge, and I think some of them were taken to task.
But the law at the time was rather wishy-washy, in the sense that you found it difficult to, if the standard was a civil standard, which meant that in all probability, as opposed to beyond reasonable doubt, which is the test, the gold standard in a criminal matter. The law in Sri Lanka didn't seem to augur well, and in the sense that people who were caught were sort of, what's the word, the matter was compounded.
Yeah, for us, you're right in saying so. I think one of the reasons, there were defects, no doubt about it, in the rule book, and that is why there's an amendment coming into the SEC Act, right, which is, I think, will come before Parliament very soon, which will capture what you just basically indicated.
So we'll go for a dual standing.
Yeah, we can go for a dual standing, but there again, for us, look at you also need to look at our legal system, right? How expeditious, right, these things can work.
This is an unfortunate word,
unfortunate thing. When I was there was a case which came up in 1996,
yeah,
right, which is still not decided, and the matter is in the either Court of Appeal or Supreme Court.
24 years later.
24 years, there is no decision that has been still arrived at. Now, all the officers who are handling the case with vigor and enthusiasm in 96 or 98 aren't there today to take it forward.
They're probably all being cremated by now.
Right. So that is why you need to have, for these white collar crimes, a mechanism was devised to compound the matter, right, in a manner.
But white collar crime perpetrators appear to have political patronage and political cover, therefore and thereby stymie the efforts of the law enforcement people to bring about a case. But on that note, let's go for a short break. Do return, as after all this is Newsline Live.
Newsfirst, Newsline with Faraz Shauketaly.
And welcome back to Newsline Live. I'm in conversation with Mr. Malik Kader, formerly from the SEC and the Ministry of Finance. And Mr. Kader, we've got a question here. We know that the stock market had been manipulated in the past. I am scared for my EPF monies.
Faraz, I think what needs to be done is, certainly I don't blame this investor for being scared, because yes, there would have been issues previously, but there can be an element of hope if the EPF fund managers are properly regulated. They're being given guidelines, right? Certain guidelines. You shouldn't, Faraz, being fund managers, you shouldn't go behind them and tell them do this, do that. You need to give them freedom within a certain parameter,
so
because it is then that they can perform. This particular investor who sent this message, he has to remember currently this particular year, I mean, investors, EPF holders have been getting about 11%, 10% plus return for a year. With the current scenario, interest rates dropping to below 5%, right, the next year, they're not going to get that return on the EPF. So you need to go into high risk areas. Now, it for a while doesn't mean that the EPF or the EPF would come and invest 100% of his money in the stock market, which is high risk. You need to take a risk for us. So I think about they invest maybe in and around 10% or less than that in the market, right? So you need to balance. I think the fund managers will need to balance their portfolios and see how best they can maximize return, not only to EPF holders but to any other fund management as well.
Right. Now then, whose job is it to promote the Colombo Stock Exchange? Is it the SEC's job?
Yeah. The current mandate of the SEC, which is one of the objectives, speak about development of the market. I think it is under the third objective. It has given the SEC a development mandate. So the SEC also has a mandate to develop the market in addition to the Colombo Stock Exchange, right? So the SEC Act specifies that as well.
I see. And currently, looking at Sri Lanka from a foreigner's investment point perspective, is there enough of good stock for foreigners to come in and invest here?
Faraz, a very good question you post. Looking at the portfolios we have, to attract foreigners, I think we need to get most of our companies to dress better than they are now. We have about 300 companies. We might have about maybe 15 or 20 or 25 companies where foreigners get attracted to. We need to get more companies, like to increase corporate governance. I think there's a lot of regulation which is coming in by the SEC, the central bank and the stock exchange, right, to up the bar, right, which will attract foreigners to come into the market. For us, one of the things is that you're talking about foreigners, you're talking about large foreign investors coming into the market. Well, even if they come with big money, there is nothing.
What's big? $10 million or more?
Or maybe we'll say 10 million, maybe 50 million. There's nothing much. The liquidity in the market is not sufficient for them to
that
come
means
and
the available
yes, that's right. And that's because our market is tiny and small. It's tiny and small.
Yeah.
For us, you brought up this thing just before the program, how having a minister in place, right? How we can improve the capital markets, not only the capital markets, but the economy at large, right? As I indicated even in earlier programs, the government has to take the lead. The government has to take the lead. We have a dedicated minister who's here, right, who knows capital markets inside out. We need to take some of these SOEs, right, and roadshow them and bring foreigners into this market.
Well, because it will also bring transparency,
Yes, transparency,
and accountability.
yes.
So
What happens
Sri Lankan
is-
Airlines
yes.
would be a good starting
Yeah,
point.
we should roadshow not only Sri Lankan Airlines, we have Hyatt, we have Hilton, right? We have some very good products where we can attract foreigners to come. We can give them a certain portion. It for a while doesn't mean that you're going to sell everything to them.
But the last time under President Kumaratunga, they tried this with the Sri Lanka Insurance Corporation. And although the president then, Mrs. Kumaratunga, wanted an element of foreign management to be involved, what they found later was that this so-called foreign company was actually owned by a group of Sri Lankan businessmen
Yeah.
who were using a nominee service in Gibraltar. And so it beat the whole purpose.
Yeah, so that's what you need to have proper controls and proper people at the correct place
Yeah.
to take these things forward. So you need to be, I mean, you're talking about the Sri Lanka Insurance Corporation, right? I mean, you're talking about the biggest banks. 70% of the banking sector is not in the market.
Yeah.
Right, so
These are the state banks.
State banks, right? You bring them, you just basically get 10 or 15% into the market, right? You're going to prop the market up.
How do you ideologically explain this and sell it to the public when you have a government that is committed to not selling the family silver?
Yeah, that's a problem. This is actually politically, it's a dirty word.
For
right?
this government, it
Yes,
would be.
I think for any government, Sri Lanka is used to a certain pattern. So we need to educate our masses. We need to educate the unions, right? The benefits, the larger benefits Sri Lanka, the country and the company is going to have as a result of it being listed.
Is there enough money available for the SMEs to fund their businesses and so on? I'm asking you very specifically because of the hotel industry. Many hotels are in trouble because they don't have any business. What little business they have is limited to local tourism, and then along with lockdowns and a genuine fear and respect for the medical aspect of COVID-19, CV-19, you find that these people are struggling. So is there enough money available to help them?
No, it's quite unfortunate, this current situation. I don't think anyone bargained,
No.
right, for having this situation around the world.
Yeah.
It will take us about at least another 6 to 1 year for us to recover. So I think the government is now already planning to give concessions to these companies for them to keep them afloat.
And how will that impact on our economy?
For us, since our expenditure has come down drastically because of import controls, which is the right thing to do, I think we are not doing that bad, right? There are lots of people who say that the country is moving towards, some kind of disaster. Looking at the exchange rate, looking at the interest rates, looking at perhaps the inflation, things don't look that bad because this is a pandemic situation. It's not only us, it's across the world, right? Look at the US, look at Canada, look at Europe. They are struggling. So a little struggle is necessary, right, at this end as well. But I think after about 6 to 9 months, right, it'll be a new world. People will be used to a different scenario.
So are you
of doing business.
are you saying that the current situation that we find ourselves in is, if you analyze this little saying, that life is not hatta without the katta. Are you saying that that is what it is? That
Yes, it's a difficult situation. It's a difficult, it is not an easy situation. Everything is not, they say, hunky-dory, right? Everything is not good. Right? It's not only for us, it's for everyone. I think across the board, other than the export companies, most of the companies might be having issues.
As a man, final question, as a man who spent some time in a senior position at the SEC, were you Director General?
Director General, yes.
Director General of the SEC. And now, with the announcement that the EPF will make a return to the stock market, are you?
I'm not making an announcement, I'm just
Yes,
suggesting.
I know. But the government have indicated that,
Okay,
that they
good.
will return.
Oh, that's very good.
Are you, even though you are aloof, and you may be looking at it like a fly on the wall, do you have any reservations in thinking that, oops, here we go again? Are the pumping and the dumping people getting ready,
Okay.
licking their fingers and saying,
right.
this is going to be good again?
No, Faraz, in I think 2010,
Yeah.
we brought in certain regulations.
Yeah.
And we were very, very unpopular for bringing those regulations.
Indrani Sugundasa left.
Indrani Sugundasa left, I left, right, because of the regulations we brought. But today, all those regulations are in place,
Well, bravo.
right? And that is why today you see a fairly disciplined market. There is no credit in the market, right, which was there previously. Now on the third day, you would find the broker standing, right, on your doorstep to collect the money, right? So the regulations are in place. So pumping and dumping, right, was a thing of the past.
Market manipulation, front running,
no, so-
churning.
Yeah, so those things are something which the regulator will have to be looking at.
And the regulator meaning the SEC.
SEC. In any market, there are irregularities.
Only if the regulation is robust will Sri Lanka become attractive to foreign investment.
It's not really robust for us. We have to be big as well,
Right.
right? Being robust is not good enough if the foreigners don't have appetite to come in and invest. So we need to give that appetite as well. That appetite will come with the SOEs.
Malik Kader, thank you very much for being on
Thank you,
Newsline
Faraz.
Live.
Thank you.
And that's the way it was on Newsline Live. Take care, have a wonderful evening ahead of you. And now it's time to watch the best news channel ever, News First and the Primetime News. Take care and, of course, God bless you.